Awesome. Welcome, everyone. The team at PAAS today is hosting this interactive webinar to provide you with some insights and ideas on how to reduce technology spend. The technology category is the largest and fastest indirect spend on many balance sheets. It may be applicable to yours. These technology suppliers have extremely high margins built into their pricing models. We know because many of us that you're going to hear from today work there. These pricing models with these high margins in turn offers you customers an untapped opportunity to capture significant savings. And a lot of that savings will happen here in Q4, October, November, and December. During the session, you have the opportunity to ask any question, top of mind, whatever you want to ask, we're going to answer when we finish the content portion of this. And that chat box is located up in the right-hand corner of your screen. So as we go through the content here, please start jotting down some questions. We've received many questions in advance, but we want to make sure we get to everyone's questions as well too. Not only is the technology the largest spend, it's also the most complicated category to procure. A lot of different licensing programs, a lot of licensing programs that change intentionally by the suppliers, and they do a pretty good job of keeping us all on our feet, or on our toes, excuse me. So we'll talk a little bit today about how technology procurement's hard, 6 areas that we feel that's really hard, and then 6 areas that we feel that we can make it simple for you all. This is not a sales session today. It's truly a gesture of our experience giving back to you, the customers and procurers of technology. I'm Eric Cunningham. I'm the Chief Customer Officer of PAAS, and I have the pleasure of hosting this event with 2 of my colleagues. A little bit about me. I spent most of my career selling enterprise software and hardware, companies like Oracle, Microsoft, IBM, and Salesforce, to name a few. You know, when you're working with the technology suppliers, it's important to understand who's sitting across the table from you, you know, how they're motivated, what their internal processes consume of, but also, you know, how do they need to obtain the approvals and their approval process that you're asking for concessions. So today I'm delighted to shed some light in this particular area. Next, I'd like to introduce Russ Ross. Russ, would you please introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks, Eric. Again, my name is Russ Ross. I'm responsible for customer strategy at PAAS. Prior to PAAS, I worked at Giant Eagle and Alcoa for over 20 years and have experience as CIO. I look forward to sharing my experience with you regarding the prior painful process of technology procurement and the new proven modernized approach that PAAS is coaching our clients. Dave Krigger, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey, thanks, Russ. Hello, everyone. I'm Dave Krigger, and I'm responsible for data analytics here at PAAS Advisors. I spent many years on the supplier side, you know, in the channel, working for companies like Corporate Software, Software Spectrum, Insight, managing Microsoft contracts, and then so many different software contracts. So I got a lot of my experience there. And at that point, I then transitioned into technology procurement functions for companies like Highmark Health and Westinghouse. I understand that technology is the most difficult category. It's very complex, very difficult to purchase. And let's face it, most companies just have limited resources, limited time to be successful in this area. Also, keep in mind, I think Eric made this point a little bit earlier, that most of the tech spend, or not most, but you know, upwards towards 50% of your will hit your balance sheet in the 4th quarter. That's like now. So I hope your session, you gain a lot of value from it, and I really hope that you take a lot of notes and find some immediate ROI in savings.
Thanks, Dave. So hopefully our audience notices that we've come with a pretty strong lineup today. An ex-CPO, Chief Procurement Officer, an ex-CIO, and myself in the sales aspect. So this is what makes PAAS a little unique. We've diversed our team to kind of look at that 360-degree view of the procurement life cycle, and that's how we come together to help our clients. So before we get into the details, we will be introducing a new subscription option later. Dave Krigger will talk about that savings test for PAAS. So for anyone that has dialed into the session today, we're offering a free pro bono, I like to call it, supplier negotiation coaching for you. So, what I would do is pick my toughest supplier, come to PAAS and say, how can you help me achieve saving goals, better terms and conditions within this particular supplier? Again, we've got over $6 billion of experience in procuring technology. So it's an untapped resource, and from the PAAS side. So let's begin here. You guys ready? Let's talk about why is technology procurement hard? So I asked our team to come up with 6 internal items, and these might not be the same 6 that you see, but against our customers across the globe, small, medium size, and large, this is kind of the cadence that we typically see. So Russ, I'm going to ask you to dive into the first one, but let's talk about the suppliers constantly and intentionally changing licensing programs.
Sure, this is a big issue. Suppliers are constantly changing metrics, bundles, cloud credits, terms, and even the licensing models. I'll give you an example. When I was CEO, we purchased PeopleSoft. Before we even had it installed, they changed the licensing model. You could no longer own the software, you could just lease it. Unless you converted over to the new model, you couldn't upgrade. This is just an example of suppliers changing the model to benefit them and not their customers. It happens all the time. It's a highly competitive atmosphere, and all these changes create confusion and make it harder to negotiate a good deal and to know if you have a fair deal.
Yeah, that's a good point, Russ. It's the sales ops world of technology suppliers, whether you're in telecommunications, software, hardware, print services, consulting services. Things are changing rapidly, and you've got to stay up on all those different types of metric changes, so to speak. The next one, Dave, kind of talk about the challenge that most companies face relative to addressing strategic versus long tail.
Yeah, that's a big one. Let's define long tail for those of you who aren't in procurement and haven't heard that term before. You have strategic vendors. Let's say we're talking about the software category. You might have Microsoft, Oracle, SAP. Those big 4 or 5 vendors at the very top where 80% of your spend goes. Well, the bottom 20% can still be very, very large and complex. And so that long tail is very difficult for a lot of companies because very limited time, very limited data, expertise, and resources. So that's a big issue, and we're going to talk a little bit later on about how to address that.
Thanks, Dave. Russ, you were a CIO I've sold to for several years, right?
Absolutely.
I don't think we ever did a deal over a Zoom call or a Teams call or a GoToMeetings call. So what we're seeing now is it's a lot easier for suppliers to say no to their customers. Russ, you want to take that one?
Sure. This is really relevant now with what's going on with COVID. Many suppliers want to wait till the last minute to execute a deal, especially on renewals, because they know you will have a conversion cost to go in a different direction. Remote negotiation can play to their favor. It's easier to say no over a video call than in person. And they continue to repeat no until you finally believe it. The suppliers know how to negotiate. Their job is to exhaust CIOs, CPOs, CFOs until they finally give in. Remote negotiations, waiting the last minute, lack of negotiation expertise on the customer side all play to the supplier's favor.
Yeah, you hit a key word. It's called exhaust. I mean, they're internally trained to do that because they want to put you in a position where there's a compelling event, and that could be an expiration date. So we'll talk a little bit about that on the solution side of it with the next 6 pillars. Dave, moving chairs. You were a procurement officer before. You saw a lot of different faces with the same supplier. You want to talk about that challenge?
Yeah, when I was in a procurement role, I can't tell you how many times I got that phone call at the end of the supplier's fiscal year saying, "Oh, hi, Dave. We often at the end of our fiscal year juggle accounts around, so I'm being assigned to a different territory." And that's true with some of the best sales reps. They put them to where there's most upside in the accounts. And they say, I'd like to schedule a meeting next week with your new rep. Okay, so there's a lot of tribal knowledge in the account that leaves with that representative. And in many cases, we start from the beginning again. So there's a lot of wasted time. Not only that, but I'm sure if you've led a procurement organization or an IT or finance organization, you've lost some good people. And so, if a procurement person who negotiated that contract leaves, all of a sudden you've got a contract there and there's no tribal knowledge, understanding what you negotiated and why you negotiated it. So that's a big one. So a lot of information about a renegotiation just walks out the door.
Okay, great points. Russ, let's talk a little bit about executive relationships, that executive sponsor, and why that's not, the lack of having that is a challenge.
Sure. Sure. Many companies don't have relationships with the executives in the supplier organization that can help them resolve issues and expedite processes. These relationships are essential to resolve product and support issues and to negotiate the best deals for new contract and renewals. These need to be in place, especially for large organizations like Oracle, Microsoft, SAP, and IBM. When dealing with these large suppliers, you're almost always are dealing with several different sales reps from different parts of the organization, calling on you, fighting for the same dollars. You need executive contacts in those organizations to help sort through the issues and look at the big picture.
Yeah, that's a great point. When I worked at Oracle, we had in anywhere from some cases 12 to 15 sales reps calling on the CIO, and he or she would certainly get annoyed. So having that challenge removed, and we'll talk a little bit about here in the next 6 pillars of how you should be able to address that and coach you to address that as well. And the last one is data, or in the case lack of data. Russ, you want to take this one?
Sure, Eric. So this is one of the top challenges as a CIO. How do you know if you negotiate a good and fair deal? Your CEO is expecting you to negotiate the best deal possible. The problem is, how do you know if you've done that? Companies have limited data to compare to the deals from suppliers. In most cases, you only have your own data, what you spent in the past for a renewal, or if you're negotiating for a new product, you may be able to compare costs from different suppliers. But a lot of times, there's enough differences in features and support and services that make it really difficult to compare pricing and know if you got a good deal. Out of all the problems with technology procurement, this is the biggest issue. If you have nothing to compare the offer to, how could you possibly know that you've got a good deal? It'd be like trying to buy a car or sell a car without Kelley Blue Book and TrueCar. It's impossible to know if you're getting a fair deal. Think about real estate. What's the first thing a realtor does when trying to determine what the price of a house should be? They look at comps. Companies just don't have that comparison data for technology procurement. It's a huge issue in negotiating the best deal possible.
That's a great point, Russ. So what I would tell you is, when I worked on the supplier side, if the customer got a 50% discount the year before and they increased their spend and they got 52%, they thought it was a big win. The customer would think, that's a big win. I increased my discount 2%. Truth of the matter is, the company right down the street might be spending the same amount of money on the same product and getting much bigger. So having that benchmark data, we'll talk about that here on the solution side of it as well. So again, these are 6 of the items that my team came up with. I think they're relevant. Hopefully they, hopefully they have brought back some anxiety in a good way. So in order to fix a problem, we have to look at it head on. So now let us transition into some solutions of how you can address these problems as well too. All right, so starting earlier, negotiations, or Dave, you can talk a little bit about, we don't call it negotiations, can you, or renewals, we call it something else. So Dave, can you take this one, starting earlier?
Yeah, this is a good one because it starts out with you taking control of the whole process. So start early and create other options and set a mutual close plan. Don't let the supplier create a sense of urgency. Don't go by his timeline, go by yours. And we don't call it a renewal anymore, we call it a renegotiation. Even in your long tail, if you have agreements that you automatically renew, it's a renegotiation. And so start that process early on, especially for cloud and on-prem. Learn and how suppliers get compensated. they get compensated differently with cloud and on-prem software, and that affects the timeline. So make sure that you understand that as well. And of course, when you start early, you're able to create a sense of competition. So if there's any third-party support options for you, let's say if there's SAP or Oracle, there are third-party support options. One of them is Reministry. And so to get that to be a competitive environment, you have to start early. You need a long runway for that. So the main thing here is start early and create other options.
Yeah, the days of waiting for a cloud deal to happen and waiting until the end of the quarter and end of the year, it doesn't matter to a supplier. If the cloud deal is 36 months and it's $100 total contract value, that $100 gets divided out by 36 months. That's how they recognize revenue.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's exactly right.
They still recognize the revenue up front. And, you know, I can tell you, we work closely with third-party companies to understand their value. Origin is one of them that works to provide third-party support for IBM. And quite honestly, it's a great option to have for you. So, all right, let's move along. Thanks, Dave. Let's talk about analytics and how that plays a big role in you being successful with your technology negotiations. Dave, I'll ask you to go, and Russ, maybe you can add some color after Dave.
Sure.
Yeah, analytics is important to me. I lead and I collaborate with a lot of really smart people in developing and managing our PAAS 360 analytics platform. So I know how important it is to get as much data as we possibly can, and this really helps you in the long tail area. So you know you're dealing with your top tier suppliers, of course, and we apply analytics to that too. It's really important to understand how your contracts hit, the licensing metrics, and how, if you're going through true ups or anything, how that grows and snowballs through the years. And our contract management is with analytics is real important to track that. And with the long tail, it's so important to look at the different aspects of the data, from how many suppliers in each category, what kind of subcategories do you have, and really slicing and dicing the data as much as possible. So analytics plays a huge role in it. So don't overlook analytics.
Russ, you want to make a comment on that?
Sure. As Dave mentioned, the platform is great for analyzing your procurement spend by supplier, category, subcategory, and location. When I was CEO, my CFO was constantly asking for projections on spend and savings. The tool makes it very easy to do these forecasts for either one or multiple years. Plus, it provides the capability to track the actual spend and savings against the forecast. I would have loved to have this tool when I was CIO.
Yeah, it's a little different. We call it modernizing the procurement process, but having data and benchmarking your data versus what others are paying, it's a pretty powerful tool. So let's move along, guys, because I want to make sure we have time for questions, and we're getting a lot of questions right now coming through. So contract templates, or excuse me, we skipped one. Negotiation skills. Russ, a quick comment on negotiation skills.
Sure. I was always sitting on the other side of the table. Then I joined a company like PAAS. Now I really understand how negotiations happen, seeing it from a supplier side. If you have the data and you have a plan, the negotiation can be much more effective. You need to have a clear understanding of how contract negotiations need to occur. Most companies don't have insight into what occurs on the supplier side, how they structure deals and why, what their approval process is, what needs to happen to get deals done. Without these insights, you aren't going to negotiate the best deal you can. PAAS has experts that have worked for all the major suppliers and know the processes, key executives, and how many deals have been structured. So they know what's possible and who to contact to get the best deal.
A good point. So in many cases, if you're a fortune account, you've got thousands of suppliers, 800, 700 suppliers. Keep in mind that sales rep that's selling to you might just have you as a customer, one customer. So their strategy has been developed for a long period of time. And you've got a lot of things to worry about, a lot of moving parts where they just have one strategy that they got to execute on. So it's important that you have you have the correct negotiation strategy for at least your strategic spend, your top 3 to 5 suppliers. So Dave, I'm going to move quick. Let's talk about contract templates.
Yeah, This is a fun topic. Earlier in my career, I got thrown into a procurement position and had to negotiate Oracle and Microsoft agreements. And at the time, I didn't really know what I was doing. But a year later, I realized, oh, when I got a bill for Enterprise Edition for database Enterprise Edition, that my price skyrocketed. That's because I didn't put price holds in the agreement. So what we've done to combat that kind of thing is to create contract templates. You know, we've mapped more than 200 negotiable items in technology agreements. So we've created these templates so you don't forget the most important items that you have to be focusing on during a negotiation.
Good point. Russ, we talked about that lack of executive sponsor and the challenges. Let's talk about how powerful an executive sponsor could be, specifically in the negotiation process.
Sure. When we talked about the problems, we said many companies don't have executive contacts in the supplier organization to go to resolve issues, expedite processes, and cut through red tape. If you think about it, you're dealing with all parts of the supplier organization: sales, support, product development, etc. It would be really hard to establish a good executive relationship in each of those areas for each of your suppliers. To help solve this problem, you need to have an executive sponsor identified for all your major suppliers. They can be from any part of the supplier organization. These individuals act as your advocate to clear roadblocks and expedite the process. Your executive sponsor then works with other parts of the supplier organization on your behalf, rather than you trying to work through all the organization levels. Usually they are not measured by revenue, but by customer satisfaction, or it works in your favor. By having a sponsor, this gives you one executive contact you can go to ask for help and seek advice.
Appreciate it, Russ. And you know what, I'll take the last one. So the last one's benchmark data. So again, year over year, you're categorizing your spend and subcategorizing your spend. It could be hardware, Dell, it could be software, SAP, whatever the case may be, but you're looking at that historical spend and the trend. And then you're forecasting that spend over the next 3 to 5 years with procurement and IT, hopefully aligning on that. So benchmark data. So the big difference, this isn't survey data. We're not sending you a gift card from Starbucks. This is data that other customers across the globe have deals that have actually been concepted and have ink to paper. So why not benchmark your pricing, your proposals against anonymized data that we have on our platform to help you accelerate the whole process in the procurement lifecycle. Kind of give you that sanity that, hey, maybe I'm getting a good deal. Maybe the variance is plus and maybe the variance is minus, but at least I'm getting those insights to help me, you know, move forward with those particular suppliers. So that's really what we talk about benchmark data. Dave, well, let's move forward here and talk a little bit about the give that we want to offer clients, the free supplier analysis, but you can talk about the program, and then we're going to take Q&A. All right?
Certainly. Thank you. We have many customers on a project-by-project basis, but what customers have asked us for is truly a model where we can have an ongoing engagement with them. Thus, we are pleased to introduce our new subscription model, the Savings Desk by PAAS. And by Savings Desk, we mean we have a lot of resources behind here. It's not just one person. So when you call in, we have a customer success manager, but we have a ton of different resources behind that person. So the Savings Desk allows customers to receive regular and ongoing insights on all elements of their technology and their procurement efforts. So one thing that we guarantee is that when you go through PAAS, we have a 5x ROI. So for every dollar that you spend with PAAS advisors, you will get $5 in return. So with this, you will get access to the PAAS 360 platform, 2 modules included, spend and savings. We have up to 20 suppliers analyzed per year. And that's, depending on your size, that's a good number of suppliers. That might be your top tier, and there's millions of dollars of savings there. A procurement success manager, negotiation assistance with suppliers, and a 1 or 2 year subscription. Did I miss anything there, Eric?
No, I think the thing that is to point out is, hey, listen, you can cash in on a free coaching with one of your suppliers, having the benchmark data Yeah, I don't know why you have nothing to lose by doing that to try out the service. So again, thanks Dave for talking about the new model. We're actually launching subscription model by Savings Desk by PAAS tomorrow. So this is a little preload to that. So let's get into questions. Russ and Dave, you ready?
Sure.
Ready.
There's 11 or 8 questions right now, right? So Russ, who are some of your major customers?
Well, we've got a wide range of customers in size and industry. We also have a direct and indirect channel. We have a very large customer in the wireless telecom area, very large global customer in the life sciences area, cable company, public schools, numerous technology companies, numerous industrial companies, small and medium-sized businesses that cover almost every industry. I don't want to give specific names at this point, but we can provide specific reference accounts as we engage further in the sales cycle.
Yeah, what I would say is we have non-disclosure agreements with our clients, but we do have referenceable clients. So if we ever get to that point, we're happy to connect that conversation. Besides benchmarking pricing data for your clients, what other insights could a client utilize to assist within the procurement process? Dave, you want to take this one?
Okay, so I think I understood the question. So with the top tier, we can use benchmarking data based on what your top tier is, whether it's Microsoft, SAP, Oracle, many others. And so benchmarking helps compare your pricing to a real market price. But on the other side of that is analytics can really help us dig into different spend patterns. And it can really tell a story. For example, I have a client where I did some analysis and learned that there was over $1 million in hardware accessories on a credit card at full retail. Meanwhile, this company had a supply contract for that, but this was all rogue spend that we found, and a simple policy change saved them $350,000. So it's amazing what analytics can point to, and you know, there's just a ton of stories. I found all kinds of stuff in that long tail that we talked about earlier. So it's the analytics that can really shine a light on savings.
Yeah, just so whoever asked that question, we benchmark 25 different items on an agreement. So anything from business terms, legal terms, list price, extended price, location is a huge one. So if you're located in Denver, Colorado, you're going to see trending of your Oracle pricing than you're going to see in New York City. So that's the kind of data that we get out for. But over 25 different items, we're happy to share that with you. All right, so next question. Can you give some examples of savings that you have achieved for clients? I'll take this one here. So just last week, we onboarded a client about 3 months ago. They spend roughly $250,000 in indirect tech spend, and we've went through probably 8 suppliers, and we've saved them close to $9 million so far. So it's that immediate ROI that you're going to see because of the insights and the data. So again, we call it the quicksand approach. You continue to renew agreements, and then you get into long tail, and then you got all these auto renewals that no one's paying attention to, many cases. So you've got to get ahead of that and create some type of alerts that you've got to cancel those auto renewals 90 days, sometimes 120 days in advance. But yeah, we're, on average, we're saving our customers anywhere from 15 to 30% per supplier. And we're happy to share our case studies with you as well. Question here, how would you normally approach sharing contract templates? I'll take that one. We don't. Only if you're a client, you get access to our contract templates. What we do is we'll understand who all your suppliers are, and then we'll build you out a structure of what you need to be aware of. So if you're an M&A organization, if you're North America, if you're international, there's all different kind of language that you want to make sure that you have in your templates that are built out. And typically in the negotiation process, we send those terms in advance to the suppliers. as Dave or you might have heard from Russ already, you know, we want to get ahead of the negotiations 6 months in advance to renegotiate contracts if it's cloud, or create an option for you if it's on-prem with support. So those templates that we have, a lot of those are shared with the suppliers asking for things in advance. Okay. Is your service a link between SAP and Oracle? Not exactly sure what that means, but we know SAP very well, and we know Oracle very well. We've got relationships at their executive level, and you know, it's interesting because they respect us because we help them get deals quicker. They might not be getting the same size of deals, but they also like us because we help align you know, the internal. We understand how far we can go, and we understand what terms we can get. So, you know, we help accelerate the whole process, and quite frankly, everybody wins at that point. Next question here, Russ, why don't you take this one? Actually, what services, oh, here we go. Can you explain what a typical customer engagement is with your customers look like? What's the process? How do you identify savings opportunities? Dave, can you take this one?
Sure. Okay, so I think it's the process of engagement. Okay, first of all, I really want to get to know you, and so we have a kickoff call, and we provide documents of the kind of data that we need. And when we work with you with data, my team can connect directly to your ERP system and get feeds that way. We would show you how to collect data and provide it to us. And we also have, when we give you access to our PAAS 360 platform, you can upload files. And what we do is we normalize the data, then put it into our system, and we start running analytics. And we review those analytics with you. That's real important because you know the history of your company, but we're looking at the data. So between us, you know, we're better together. And so when we look at the data together, we can really create a lot of really good insights into the spend categories and some of the spending habits that have been going on for years and years. So we work with you from the very beginning to get your data, to understand your business better, and to review analytics throughout the whole process. Was that the whole question? I think I got it all.
Yeah, I think you got it. I think a key point that you mentioned there is we're an extension of the IT and procurement team. We're not an outsourced procurement organization. We're a service. We're a subscription. We're a service, and that's how you view us. There's a great question here. Ed asked a question about one of the areas that presents a constant challenge in software companies' willingness is, you know, they give you that ability to download as much software as you want, right? We know who they are. 2 words: usage buffer. So we've been very successful implementing this type of language, although it's very sensitive to the suppliers, but it's it's the mitigation of risk to our clients. So usage buffers, if you go over a certain amount, you know, you can be notified. It could be a merger and acquisition buffer. It could be a usage buffer. The term buffer is becoming very common, specifically in cloud and cloud technologies. We're happy to share more with you there. Okay. I think we probably have time for one more question here. All right, so last question here we just got. What services do you provide and how much do they cost? Maybe I'll take this one, guys. Is that okay?
Go ahead.
So we provide 3 different services. We provide a statement of work service. So if you need help renegotiating your Oracle contract, we create a statement of work that says what the fees are going to be, and then we give you a guarantee of what we get you in savings. So if we don't reach that guarantee, we pro rata you back that money. We're very conservative with what our numbers would look like to you, and then we would agree on what the ROI looks like, you know, whether it's 5x, 6x, whatever the case is. The other two services, one you just saw that we're announcing, Savings Desk by PAAS. This is, you get in up to 20 suppliers. We analyze the data. We build out the variances with not only your pricing, but your business terms. It could be a net new deal, or it could be a renewal. It could be cloud, it could be on-prem, it could be telecommunications, it could be your print services. You could be negotiating against the big 5 consulting companies. We have data on that as well too. So it's interesting how much spend is across the board relative to consulting services. There's some low-hanging fruit there if you haven't figured that out yet. And the last one is, it's our full service. It's subscription by PAAS. So you'll work with us. We categorize your data. We put it in our platform, which has 4 modules. If you're interested, you can email Eric Harper here. We can set up a demo. We take that data and then we create savings initiatives for each of the suppliers and show you what that variance looks like. So forecasting your spend, like Russ Ross talked about, but also forecasting your savings and how that's going to hit and when that's going to hit your balance sheet. We're very conservative with that approach. Everything's based upon your revenue, not your tech spend. So again, we have a program for SMB, which is, $1,500, $2,000 a month, the whole way up through $25,000, $30,000 a month. All of our programs guarantee a minimum guarantee of savings of 5x. Our customers are getting a lot more than that, but again, we got to be conservative of what we forecast for you guys as well too. So we have 2 subscription services and 1 statement of work service. Russ and Dave, anything you'd like to add before we conclude the call?
Only that I really appreciate you attending. I hope it was interesting and you gained some ideas that you can implement that will provide savings for you.
Russ, anything to add?
Nope, just concur with what Dave said.
Yeah, so thank you, sincere thanks from PAAS. We wish you the best out there. It is a hard category. We understand it's very hard. You don't have a lot of resources and expertise in that. Things change a lot. If you're looking for a partner, we're here for you. At a minimum, you should redeem the introduction offer to try it out and see how you think and or what you think. And we look forward to for having some further discussions. So at this point, this concludes the webinar, and really appreciate everybody's time and stay safe. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great week.
Thanks, everybody.